Ladies and gentlemen, we're unveiling a big child safety secret. Don't miss it. Julia actually knew all along that your kid was the target, and one little word from her could have stopped the explosion. But she chose to sit back and let your kid run into danger. But was she really just a pawn in someone else's game? The other morning, she heard guests in Julia's room telling tall tales, so she whipped out the eavesdropping gear that Anne had lent her. The guest was none other than the National Security Minister. She was reporting on the progress of the assassination case and suspected a leak from the police department, but was momentarily taken aback. Yet she still tried to maintain her composure, like, the calm in the middle of a hurricane. Once off the elevator, she suddenly announced she needed to use the restroom, but the female security officer had already clocked out, but had no choice but to handle the scene herself. After completing her checks, Julie swooped in and gave her a winter coat, and just when Bud was ready to smile back, she dropped a deep and meaningful line, but found herself even more puzzled by the complex woman before her, then headed back to the precinct. Her boss immediately demanded a report on the eavesdropping situation, and she had thought she could wing it. Unfortunately, her boss knew all too well that Julia had met with the National Security Minister that morning. It had to fake that she was in the shower and didn't overhear anything, but her boss brought up her family as leverage. This forced her to rethink and comply as she clocked out that evening. Julia noticed something was off with her and couldn't help but probe Bud multiple times. Bud finally voiced her suspicion. Did Julia know all along that her kid's school was the terrorist target? I'm feeling tired. I've got to go work in the office, thanks, officer. Good night. Seeing Julia's dodgy response, Bud already had her answers lined up. She then heard that a mysterious visitor arrived next door. The guest handed Julia a tablet, warning her that the documents inside could only be read within a limited time frame. As the man was leaving, Bud called out to stop Julia. She casually asked who he was, just standard procedure. The visitor didn't hide it, and plainly dropped his name. But precisely on the very next day, Bud tried to look the guy up in the system, but found he didn't even exist. The mystery behind it all could only be revealed by checking the tablet. That night, when Julia was sound asleep, she sneaked over to the tablet. She discovered it held political secrets that could topple the UK government. It turned out the tablet was from the National Security Minister Alden. It contained detailed records of all the Prime Minister's scandals. The documents revealed she not only had issues with alcohol and drugs, but also had allegations involving minors. If this document got out, it would surely shake up the UK political landscape. Though Julie was shocked by the contents, she didn't go public right away. Instead, the next day, she held a routine meeting about the threats. However, the anti-terrorism unit that should have led it was left out in the cold. Stepping in instead was Minister Alden, who believed there's very likely a mole operating inside the police. Because the snipers seemed to know all the private plans of the Home Secretary, and they even discovered information from the terrorist phones. Deputy Home Secretary Oldmere tried to defend an ally, but he was shot down by both Alden and Julia. Following the conclusion of the meeting, the two even held a private meeting on their own to discuss. They were discussing the tablet the mysterious individual had given them last night. Subtitles, with such a significant advantage in acting swiftly, I am informing you of the most opportune timing. Thanks, Stephen. But after Alden left, Julia started her own plans quietly. One night in particular, she deliberately avoided all security, only notifying Bud to take her out of the city secretly. The destination of their trip was precisely the Prime Minister's villa. But even with maximum stealth, news of her secret meeting with the Prime Minister spread quickly. Various factions caught wind of the news and were on edge all at once. The National Security Minister who provided Julia with incriminating information was livid. He felt she had severely undermined their cooperation agreement. Subtitles. Deputy Home Secretary Mayer also urgently went to meet Julia's party whip. They were ready to take necessary measures before the big shake-up. Everyone speculated that Julia had made some kind of deal with the Prime Minister, but no one had any idea what they had discussed that night. To clarify the eavesdropping situation, Bud was called back to the precinct by her boss, but he merely mentioned that a mysterious visitor had handed in a tablet. He kept tight-lipped about the secrets inside. This way he could protect his family while avoiding getting caught up in the power struggle. At the same time, Julia was busy pushing forward her own investigatory powers bill. She was making waves in the parliamentary forum, which garnered her support for the next House. It became a powerful card in her bid for the Prime Minister's position. However, due to suspicions of invading citizens' privacy, her online support ratings took a nosedive. So, in a panic, Julia decided to give a speech at the university. She aimed to win over more votes from the public. But the public backlash was way more than she expected. On the way to the university, she was met with a sea of protesters. Bud stayed close to her side, protecting Julia from any grenades that may fly her way. Before long, the audience began to fill the venue, and the security team completed the checks. Subtitles. Bud walked into the green room, informing everyone that everything was ready. But at this moment, Julie didn't rush to the stage. Instead, she started to explain Bud's earlier concerns. The reason for not informing the school about the terrorist attack in advance was that she wasn't certain if the intel was actually legit. To avoid unnecessary panic, she kept everyone in the dark. But she had already dispatched police to enhance security around the school. That's the reason why the support team could arrive so quickly. Bud unwrapped her concerns, but didn't voice anything. Then Julia immediately grabbed her hand again. That unexpected show of affection left Bud feeling all warm and fuzzy. She silently made up her mind to protect her at all costs for this life. So during the speech, Bud was hyper-aware of everyone's movements in the room. Suddenly, she noticed a suspicious figure flashing outside. So the Alliance rushed outside to investigate threats. And there we could see all the assistants Scruffy panicking right at the door. Subtitles. Turns out she had received a call from the consultant Rob. He learned that there was a major blunder in Julia's speech. She had to go in immediately and switch out the script. Bud was not here for the politicians' word games, but carefully asked her to open the briefcase. Confirming that there was indeed just a pile of documents inside, she let her through. When she returned to the venue, Scruffy was already by Julia's side. At that moment, the female security officer suddenly sensed something was off, but also rushed over closely. After the explosion, Bud ignored her own injuries. She instantly dashed over to the cabinet minister's side. Subtitles. She felt his artery and found his pulse and breath were so faint that they could hardly be sensed by the flesh. With no other choices available, she had to shield the minister with her own body. to protect against a potential second attack. Little did Bud know at this moment that this conspiracy would ultimately target him. Afterward, the officers from the anti-terror team analyzed the surveillance footage frame by frame. They suspected the assistant's briefcase was the bomb that detonated, but from the video, they couldn't determine the result at all. Sheriff Dick wanted to figure out the situation. He interrogated Bud, the bodyguard team leader. After all, she had left her post for a bit during the duty. Bud told the officer she didn't see anything wrong with Scruffy's briefcase. Had she noticed any issues, she would have detained him on the spot. The speech venue had undergone a thorough police search beforehand.